How to work on surfaces with different temperatures. Thanks again for joining on Sealed for Good. Today we're going to talk about surface temperatures because we are coming closer to those winter months and this discussion always comes up. And at the time, it's not just about the cool months, but also we still get some of those jobs we're doing outdoors on roofs where surfaces go up in temperature, and often we see this piece go wrong where applicators put membranes down or primers down or start to do their work and they don't attend to the surface temperature. They look at their phone and they go, the temperature is 20 degrees today, it's fine, but it's not about the ambient temperature, it's more importantly about the surface temperature. And this is the piece that you need to understand. So let's talk about the warm months first because they're a little bit easier to deal with. Obviously, if you've got the ability to have some apparatus that can actually measure the temperature on a surface, that is more important than having a thermometer that can just actually gauge the temperature that's ambient. It's more important to understand the surface temperature, and different surfaces will conduct heat differently. So you might have a substrate down there like concrete, and then you go and prime it with a primer that could be dark in colour, and that surface temperature goes up. And I've seen that firsthand, even when back in our day, or if it's a bitumen primer or a bitumen product, the black of the bitumen is going to push that temperature up, the surface temperature up, and that can impact how you apply your membrane and the time of the day you apply your membrane. So very important to understand that. We've had grey primers in the past that were either slurries. That happens a lot with cement slurries that you might be using a bonding agent like the Gripset 11Y, and that then could impact the surface because the surface becomes darker and obviously absorbs more heat. So you need to understand that it's that. Obviously, if you've got a metal surface versus something that could be concrete versus something that could be sky-on, they all vary. But if you read the data sheets of the products you are using, they will tell you, and not the products of the substrate, the products you are using. So that's the primer and the membrane manufacturer. It should state on there surface temperature you apply the product to. That is a key piece to understand and get that right. So don't just assume. Okay, you should now with your smartphones, guys, have your phones out there and have your favourite website or your TDSs on your phones and your favourites and refer to them and read the detail. These things sometimes are on the buckets of products, but on a pail of a product there's limitations on even without, there's so much you can actually write on the back on the rear of a pail. But the pail, our pails will always tell you refer back to the data sheet. So refer back to the data sheet because there's a lot more comprehensive information there to cover you on things like coverage and also the surface temp. So that's the first piece. Then understanding the surface temperature that could impact the drying or the curing of your membrane. So again, hot weather, you want to make sure that you're not going into the situation where you put it down in the heat of the day and then the temperature's rising because that could fry the membrane and impact the curing phase. Now let's go towards the winter months, which is all what we said at the start where it's coming up now. And this one comes and bites people on the backside because we forget things like frost and dew. So surfaces, again, you might think I've got a day today and I'll go into Melbourne at the moment, in Melbourne though, so it could be 10 or 11 degrees in the best part of the day, but the surface could still be at 1 or 2 degrees. And depending on the type of surface, you could have a freeze-thaw phenomena, okay, where it actually gets cooler. And you need to understand that that can also impact the adhesion of your primer or membrane to the surface. So again, measure the surface temp. If there's frost, you need to remove it, or dew, wipe it up. If you've got freeze-thaw, you need to ensure that's like ice. And we don't get a lot, but some parts of Victoria, SA, the southern states, it's Tassie, and our friends over in New Zealand get this all the time. That's particularly on concrete. You need to ensure the freeze-thaw phenomena is gone. So you've got to ensure that surface has got no freezing or frost, because that is like bonding your membrane to a piece of ice, and that's going to impact the adhesion of it. You're not going to get any absorption or keyed into the surface. So again, if you're going, you might be doing a box gutter. A box gutter on a cool day to start with is going to be very, very cool, but as soon as a bit of sunlight comes out there, then you've got the metal that'll start to conduct the heat and you get back to a normal surface temp. So in the winter months, understand the best parts of the day and plan your project out. We always talk about planning your project out, because if you don't understand that limitation, it will come back to bite you, and it's really bad when you get someone telling you that, hey, the membrane is delaminating or debonding, and you go there and you're trying to work out what have you done. You've primed, you thought you cleaned it well, and just things like that. And we've seen that with morning dew. Sometimes the guys look at it and they go, okay, we cleaned it yesterday. They prep the surface. They think it looks all good. They're outside and they start rolling the product out, and they're actually bonding over dew. It's not visible to the eye. So things like just a simple wipe down of the surface. You get a dry cloth, wipe it over there. If you can see any signs of dampness on that cloth, you know that you've had morning dew on there. Take the care to inspect that early. These are simple things you might think, but how many times we hear about this, or when people are actually not understanding the surface temperature and the impact it can have on their membrane, the drying, the bonding, the adhesion, etc. So you need to understand those limitations, and then what the differences are between the surfaces. So concrete versus sky-on versus CFC sheeting. If I'm working inside, if I'm on a Hebel block or a Hebel panel, all these different substrates are out there. There's so many of them out there, and we always, and timber as well. We talk about understanding the substrate manufacturer's details, understand what their requirements are, and again, moisture on a substrate needs to be removed. You can have products like ours in our range that will bond to a damp surface, but that is different from surface moisture. So ensure that piece is understood, because in the winter months, that is the one that undoes many contractors, and then you're stuck with doing a repair job. Impacts your reputation, impacts your cost and your profit. If you've got any questions on how to optimize or understand any of our products in terms of how you apply them in varying temperatures in the conditions you might have faced with around the country this time of year, call 1-800-650-435 or drop us a line. And please guys, don't forget to subscribe. We want to deliver you a ton of value moving up. Don't stop in the winter. Just understand that you've got to play with the hands of the gods and make it happen. I'll see you next time.